I said it could be about players right now, managers, whatever. It could be all time. Anything goes. Absolutely anything goes. And can I just say a huge, huge shout out to you guys, because I mean, you guys definitely turned up. I got over 60 comments from you guys, so I've got so many hot takes to go through. Thank you very much to everybody who submitted hot takes and unpopular football opinions. So I'm just gonna react to them now. I'm gonna try my best to get through every single one, but of course we've got a lot to get through, so I'll be a bit brief on a couple of them. But I've had a little browse on some of them, but a lot of them I haven't really gone into detail or thought about, so it'll be a bit of a raw reaction to them anyways. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first rank how hot a take is. Now I'm going to use Fernando's spice meter to do this. We did this in another hot takes video we did at the start of the season, so if you're unaware of what I mean here, I'll put it on the screen now. Basically, we've got a plainish take, which is a take which just is not hot at all. It's not unpopular at all. Most people agree with it. We've got lemon and herb. Yeah, again, not really very, very hot. We've got medium, which is, again, not bad. We've got hot take. And then we've got the extra hot for those really, really controversial opinions that you guys have. So I'll put them on the rankings on my spice meter. And then I'll talk a little bit about if I think you're waffling or you're actually maybe talking a bit of sense. So, without further ado, let's begin. So the first hot take we have is from CB7. CB7 says, my hot take is that Manchester City are deliberately underperforming to try and reduce the punishment for FFP. Now, I mean, this is an extremely hot take in terms of the spice meter. That is extra hot, but I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know. To say that they are purposefully underperforming is a bit, I think that's stretching a little bit. Like, it would be mad if the board, went into the changing room to say, look guys, we need you guys to underperform so we win the FFP case. Can you guys just turn it to absolute trash for the season? And the players just agree to it. Like, I mean, maybe if these guys were just pulling in, like scoring a bunch of own goals and just passing the ball straight to the opposition, maybe I could get behind that. But yeah, I'm not sure about this one, CB7. Next up, we have Isaac. So Isaac says, my hot take is that the Premier League and all the EFL league should have relegation/promotion playoffs. I think it would have a great reaction. This is interesting. I think this is quite hot, actually. I think that's quite hot because, sort of messing around with the structure of English football. I tell you now, English people, we don't like it when people start messing around with that sort of stuff. So if they were to introduce it, I think it would be quite controversial. Now, of course, a lot of leagues do this. I think Liga do this, and the Bundesliga. I think the Serie A does it as well. I can't quite remember, but to be fair, it adds a lot of drama. It's very, very entertaining, and it would be super, super fun. Like a one-off game to see who gets promoted, who gets relegated. But while I think it's entertaining, I do think it's quite unfair. And while I think it'll be super entertaining, I don't really agree with it in terms of meritocracy. I think it's quite unfair that you're sort of giving these teams who finish third from bottom a second chance, if you like, to stay in the division. And quite frankly, for example, if that happened in the Premier League, like, I don't know, let's say who finished third bottom, it was like Burnley last season or Luton, and they stayed up. Like, honestly, I really wouldn't want to see like Luton back in the Prem for another season after how poor they were, and it would be really, really cruel on that team who got promoted if they missed out. But I mean, from an entertainment point of view, I completely get it. It would be super, super fun, but I personally wouldn't implement that. Right, next up we have Martin. So Martin says Leicester won't get relegated this season. Now, I mean, there is a little bit of bias involved here because I believe Martin is a Leicester fan. But anyways, this is quite a hot take, to be honest, because Leicester look pretty doomed. They look pretty doomed to go straight back down. Not in great form at all under Ruud van Nistelrooy. Had a little bounce when he came in, but quickly have been found out. And yeah, I mean, I can't really back it. I mean, obviously, there is a chance they can stay up. Things can turn around. It's not like they're miles off it. They're not like Southampton are just so far off safety. Leicester get a couple wins on the spin, and maybe there's a chance they can stay up. But I just think over the course of the season, I don't see it happening. I do think they'll go down, but it's definitely one of those where, you know, maybe Martin could be right here, maybe. Alright, next up, we have Easton. So Easton, he's submitted two. So his first one is that my hot take is that the FA Cup semi-final should be two regular home games instead of at Wembley. Only the final should be at Wembley. Now, in terms of how hot this is, I don't know. I think it's quite lemon and herb, to be honest. I think, but in terms of if it's true, 100%, Easton is 100% right here. I think I don't think it's a hot take because I think a lot of people agree with this, but at least me personally, I 100% agree with this opinion. Like, Wembley, for me, it's the whole point of Wembley is you go there on a special occasion on a final. You shouldn't be going there for a semi-final and then going there for a final as well. It sort of loses its value, Wembley. I think when you play an FA Cup semi-final there, yeah, I think it should just be played at a home venue, or maybe even just like a neutral venue, like, I don't know, somewhere like Cardiff or something, or like Dublin. I don't know, but yeah, personally, I completely agree with his take. I don't think they should be playing semi-finals at Wembley. So his second hot take is get rid of the Conference League. The new Club World Cup sucks. Even though I like it in the US, I think it's pointless when it's during the summer and with that many teams. I would say this is probably medium. This is probably a medium take, particularly the Conference League one is a little bit spicy. That's a little bit spicy. The new Club World Cup, I think most people agree it does suck. Most people do not care about the Club World Cup, and I know they're trying to revamp it to give it some sort of meaning with all these new big clubs involved, but I mean, Chelsea are involved in that, and I couldn't really care less, to be honest. Yeah, sure, I might watch it because there's no football on in the summer, but really couldn't give a damn, and I think most teams couldn't give a damn. It's completely pointless. As for the Conference League, that's a bit of an interesting one because on the one hand, I completely see where you're coming from, particularly as a Chelsea fan. Like, it's just such a pointless competition. We literally filled our entire B team and we have won every single game. None of the teams in there really give us any sort of competition and any sort of trouble. And if we were to play our fully strengthened side, I'm sure we would comfortably win that competition. Now, where I do think the Conference League does add a bit of value is it does give a lot of smaller teams the chance of winning European silverware, and it does give a lot of teams a chance to play in Europe. For example, Olympiacos last season won the Conference League. That's their first ever, not first ever, but it's one of the first times they've won a European trophy in ages, I think. So it's really good to see them winning that. Same with West Ham when they won it. You know, West Ham fan, you tell them, the Conference League means nothing. They won't care. It's just a Conference League, sure, but it's a European trophy and there's so many memories for them. And you know, if they're in the Europa League, they might not get that opportunity. So I think the Conference League sucks for a lot of the bigger sides. I think maybe they should change it so, you know, maybe it's like lower down in the Premier League gets it, or like Carabao Cup winner or something, I don't know. But yeah, I think the Conference League, in it, the idea of it is not too bad. Alright, next up we have Yuri. So Yuri submitted two, so his first one is Pochettino would have done it just as well with the current Chelsea squad as Maresca, if not better. He already got them playing much better by the end of his tenure. The Conference League that Poch got them makes Maresca's job a lot easier because it allows him to keep the other half of the Chelsea squad fit and happy. And finally, Chelsea's good players had a year to settle in, and the ones that weren't good enough have been replaced by better options. Right, so I think this is probably a hot take. I think it's hot. Now as a Chelsea fan, I think, to be honest, you raised some good points. Like, we had a lot of momentum at the end of last season under Pochettino. We ended the season very, very well. However, I just don't know, because clearly we sacked him because of sort of behind the scenes issues. In particular, you know, he wasn't really getting on with the directors and transfer policies and stuff like that. So while I think, yeah, maybe just on paper Pochettino ended last season pretty well, we probably would be in a similar position to where we are now. I think in reality, in practice, maybe not. I think maybe he probably would have fallen out with the directors, and he did have quite a few issues, or at least I had quite a few issues with his sort of tactics and stuff like that. Even if he figured it out towards the end of the season, for 90% of last season we were really, really bad. So I'm not sure I can sit here and say definitively that, yeah, Poch would have done what Maresca's doing now, just because of how poor we were for most of last season. But I do get your point that, yeah. Alright, anyways, his next hot take. He says team awards count too much for players when it comes to handing out individual awards. The discussion around awards like the Ballon d'Or almost always immediately end for most players when they don't win the Champions League. In my opinion, it should be much more weighted towards your individual importance in a team and important games of the season. Showing up in a Champions League final can be a big part of that, but it shouldn't be the be-all and end-all. Interesting. Now, to be honest, I don't think this is that spicy. I think it's probably a medium take, because I think the general sort of average football fan probably agrees with that. But look, here's my thing. You're right to an extent, but me personally, I actually do disagree with this. The reason I say that is because, yes, 100%, just because you win a bunch of trophies does not mean that you should be, winning Player of the Season awards and be in Ballon d'Or reckoning. You need to actually contribute to those. But for me, personally, I value sort of more when you perform than how often you perform. Now, that's just me. But, I mean, you sort of mentioned it, right? Your importance to your team and importance in games of the season. Well, how do you judge that, right? Importance to your team. Well, if your team wins a trophy and you contributed massively in that run towards a trophy, then you were very important to your team, right? For example, Vinicius Jr. last season was very important and probably the most important player for Real Madrid. Why? Because Real Madrid won the Champions League and he was vital in that run. And then important games of the season. Well, what are the most important games of the season for 90% of the teams? It is those Champions League knockout games, right? Or it's those clutch title deciding games. So, while I hear your point that, okay, just if you win a bunch of trophies and you're not even that good, you shouldn't be automatically in the discussion. And, a player like Kane, for example, will score a bunch of goals, but win no trophies and instantly is out of the reckoning. Yeah, it's a little unfair, but for me personally, I think that is kind of fair, because as long as you are very important to your team winning that trophy, then for me, I will value that a lot more. Like, for example, Vinicius Jr. last season, he performed in the league, but in the Champions League he was exceptional. And personally, I value that more than someone like, I don't know, Harry Kane, for example, last season statistically outperformed Vinicius. You can say probably over the course of the season maybe was slightly better than Vinny, but what exactly did, he was important to his team, but what exactly like did his goals achieve? What exactly did his importance achieve? Whereas Vinicius's importance achieved the biggest trophy in football, right? So they're sort of like, it's weighted if you like. But look, that's just my view, but I completely understand why someone would say, like, just because you win the Champions League shouldn't mean you instantly win the Ballon d'Or. I completely understand that, but that's just me personally. I value those sort of big moments, those big games. So that's just why I disagree. Anyways, next up we have Luke. So Luke submitted two, and his first one is, if Arsenal had Xhaka last season, they would have won the league by at least 6 points. He is literally exactly what they needed in the title run last season. When Arsenal were struggling, it felt like they didn't have control of games, and Xhaka last season for Leverkusen controlled a midfield better than anyone in the world. Selling him will end up being one of the worst transfers in Arsenal's history. Damn, that's hot. That's hot. That is hot. But maybe factual. Maybe factual. I think, look, the way I see it is, Xhaka, if he stayed at Arsenal, would it have improved or not made much of a difference to Arsenal's title charge? And you would have to say, yeah, would have probably improved it, right? But then you also have to factor in that he left and he was replaced by Declan Rice. And Declan Rice performed very, very well for last season for Arsenal. Let's not forget that. Now, a Xhaka and Rice midfield, that maybe would have good, but we don't know how that dynamic would have played out. Also, his role at Leverkusen, in where he's been deployed as a DM and controlled the game, he's been exceptional at it. But he didn't play that role at Arsenal. At Arsenal, he was playing much more advanced under Arteta. He was playing in that sort of Rice role where he would push forward and grab goals, grab assists. So again, it's sort of hypothetical here. If Xhaka stayed, would he have been that sort of controller? And would Rice have been as effective as Xhaka had played? It's all hypothetical, I don't know. But I will agree that if he had stayed, then yeah, they may have won the league and he would have improved their chances. But I also do think it was more so he pushed for a move and Arsenal wanted to sell him. I might be wrong there, but I do think it was more he wanted to just return to Germany. So yeah, I'm not sure you can completely blame Arsenal for that one. Next up, he says, his second one, my hot take is that Firmino was Liverpool's most important player when he was at the club. He said, without Firmino, the entire Liverpool attack just doesn't work. Now I think this is hot as well. This is again quite hot. Because he's saying he's more important than Alisson, Van Dijk, Salah, Mane, all of these guys. Firmino was the main guy. Now, obviously he's not saying he's the best player, and he wasn't the best player in that Liverpool team, but most important. Interesting. Now, I will say, before Van Dijk came in, I would tend to agree. I would agree that before Van Dijk came in, Firmino was probably the most important. That year before, when they got to, I think the Champions League final, Firmino was unreal. Both in terms of that link-up play, but also he was really good in front of goal, grabbed lots of goals, lots of assists. That front three was unreal, and he was unreal, and he was the most important player for them. But I would say once Van Dijk came in, Van Dijk became the most important player for Liverpool, because you just saw the impact he had on the team, where he came in and suddenly he transformed them from a very good team to the best team in Europe, the best team in England, and competing with Manchester City for titles. And I think without Van Dijk in that side, there's no way Liverpool would have won the Premier League. And also in that year where they won the Premier League, I I think that was a year where sort of Firmino dropped off, and Firmino did start to drop off a little bit. Like, peak Firmino was unbelievable, but he did start, I think, towards the back end of his Liverpool career to drop off a little bit in his importance to the side. So, yeah, I mean, Firmino was very important to the side, but I think once Van Dijk came in, Van Dijk became the most important. And I mean, you saw the impact when Van Dijk got injured for that season, right? He got injured and Liverpool completely collapsed. And I mean, I'm pretty sure Firmino was there for most of the season. I might be wrong. So yeah, for me, clearly Van Dijk was the most important player. But yeah, fair play for showing a bit of love to Firmino. He definitely deserves it. Right, next up we have overhead kick or Thomas. So Thomas says he submitted quite a few here, so we'll break it down one by one. He said Liverpool aren't particularly good this season. The other top teams are underperforming. This is extra hot. This is extra hot. But I kind of agree. Now, I'm not saying, and I'm sure Thomas is not saying they are rubbish or they're overrated or anything, but I think, am I convinced this is like a generational Liverpool team we're witnessing here? No. But like, don't get me wrong, that's fine. Like, Liverpool will probably win the league this season. Hell, they might even win the Champions League. But I just don't think this is like an unreal, unbeatable team. But like, that's fine, and you don't have to be some invincible team to win trophies. And like, you can have a perfectly great season and a memorable season without being an unreal team. And I think Liverpool, you know, I think like, I just think the standard in Europe has dropped off a little bit from last year. You know, Manchester City are nowhere near what they were last year. Real Madrid are nowhere near what they were last year. PSG are not really anywhere near what they were last year. Inter Milan are a little bit near, but not, you know, they're a little bit worse than last year. Arsenal, I think, are worse than last year. So I think that's maybe why Liverpool, you know, are at the top of the Champions League. That's why they maybe stand out a little bit more. But again, that's not me saying they're a bad team. I just think the overall level has dropped and Liverpool have got better and Liverpool are a good team. But I don't think that, you know, I think Real Madrid last season are much better than this Liverpool team. I think Man City last season are much better than this Liverpool team. I think Inter Milan last season are better. Maybe even Leverkusen last season were better. But again, that's not me saying Liverpool are rubbish or anything. I just don't think, like, there's been, in the Klopp era, there have been multiple better teams for me and more impressive teams than this current Liverpool team. Like, that's just what I'll say. So I think you're right, Thomas. Number 2, Di Maria is the most underrated player of all time. That's quite hot. It's hot. And I'll say, I mean, you're kind of right. Like, there's an argument, yes, definitely. I actually did make a video. I think I made a video like ages ago about this. And yeah, I mean, I've always thought Di Maria. I've always rated him. I think he is definitely underrated. I mean, this guy in terms of trophy cabinet, absolutely unbelievable. And in terms of clutch moments, big games, this guy is unreal. He scored in the World Cup final. He scored in the Copa America final. He scored. He was man of match in the Champions League final with Real Madrid. He is a big game player, and yeah, sometimes doesn't get the love that he deserves. So you can definitely make that argument. Now he says Saudi League is better than the French League. Now this is extra hot. This is extra hot. I mean, look, I know a couple players have sort of been saying this recently, like Ronaldo, Neymar, etc. But quite frankly, I don't buy it. And I don't agree. You see, for me, there's a lot of factors that go into a league being a good league. It's not necessarily just about, you know, the big names you have in your league. And if we sort of go through some of the factors, the Saudi League doesn't really win in a lot of them. Like, what does the Saudi League have over the French League? Well, yeah, they have some big name, high reputation players, obviously, and the French League, particularly with Mbappe and Messi and all that leaving, don't have that anymore. Cool, produces some of the best young players in the world. Does the Saudi League, I mean the Saudi League doesn't produce any good young players, doesn't develop any talented players. Does the Saudi League have incredible managers, both up and coming and world class ones? I don't really think so. I can't really think of too many great managers out there in Saudi. I mean, to be fair, maybe you can argue Liga doesn't have amazing managers right now, but there's definitely some good up and coming ones, and there's Luis Enrique in there, who is miles better than any manager in Saudi League. And like for example, the Monaco manager, what's that guy's name? Adiuta, again a class manager. There's plenty of good managers in that league compared to the Saudi League. Does the Saudi League, is the Saudi League competitive in terms of the entire league? So is the title race competitive? I mean, I don't really know too much about the Saudi League like that, to be honest. Sure, Liga, the title race isn't competitive, but I'll tell you this, the rest of Liga is very competitive. And I can also tell you this, that the gap between like the top 6 teams in the Saudi League to the bottom 6 is huge, because basically all of those teams that don't get the backing from the Saudis in terms of finances, they struggle to compete with the rest of the league, and they're pretty bad sides, those teams who don't have those big names. And then, does the Saudi League have any world-class players? I mean, sure, they have high reputation players, but is anyone in the Saudi League truly world-class? I mean, I don't really think so, to be honest. Again, yeah, maybe you can argue not in Liga, and they barely have any, but at least you have some players you can put up there, maybe like a Donnarumma, like a Marquinhos or something. And then also, fans, stadiums, are stadiums packed out? In the Saudi League, absolutely not. There's large followings of some massive big clubs in the French League, sorry. Global standing, I think a lot more people watch Liga than Saudi League. I don't know anyone who really watches the Saudi League in Europe. If you're not in Saudi, I don't know who watches the Saudi League. So yeah, while they have a bunch of superstars, I don't really buy that the Saudi League's better than the French League. I mean, just look at some of the performances of the French side. Yeah, PSG dominate the league, but Lille, Monaco, Brest, these guys, all 3 of them, are likely to qualify for the next round of the Champions League, which shows just how strong Liga is in terms of the quality there and the overall quality of the teams. So yeah, sorry Thomas, I don't agree. And his final one is Robin and Ribery were a better duo than Vinny and Rodrigo. Yeah. Look, this is plainish, I can't lie, because I'm not sure anyone's actually argued that. I don't know, I might be wrong. Besides some Madrid fans, I don't know if I've ever seen someone say Vinny and Rodrigo are better duo than them. And I mean, you're completely right, by the way. Robin and Ribery are miles better than Vinny and Rodrigo as a duo. It's not even close. But yeah, I think that's quite plain. Anyways, let's move on. So next up we have Rocky. So Rocky says Hazard is better than Salah. Well, this is pretty lemon and herb, to be honest, because I think that's sort of like a common debate that goes on. I mean, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I'm always gonna rep my boy Hazard. I do think, just if we're not gonna use the better footballer, Hazard is better footballer. Hazard can do a lot better things, a lot more things than Salah can do. But if you're talking like effectiveness and stuff like that, then yeah, sure, Salah in terms of stats and everything does beat him. But yeah, I mean, personally I prefer Hazard, so I think you're right. Next up we have Relaxing. So Relaxing says, I think Darwin Núñez is miles better than Jota and should always start over him. Now that's hot. That is hot, and I think you are quite wrong, to be honest. Now, look, don't get me wrong, Darwizzy can have his uses. He can be a useful player, and maybe has better potential than Jota. Like, if he can just iron out a couple things, he can be better than Jota. And while I don't think Jota is some world-class, unreal striker, I think Jota is just more consistent, and his overall game is better than Núñez. is he's just far too inconsistent to be starting week in, week out ahead of a Jota. And I think right now Jota is, as I said, more consistent than Nunes. So that's why I would say I think you're wrong. Next up, we have Johnny Boy. Johnny Boy says Saka over Neymar. He's so much more clinical. He is clear. Now, I really hope you're being sarcastic and joking here, because otherwise this is an absolutely outrageous take. I mean, yeah, sure, right now Saka is probably better than Neymar because Neymar is a bit of a bum right now. But, like, obviously, like, if we're talking like in his prime, even Santos Neymar is better than Saka right now. Like, Neymar was just different breed. I don't get, you can put up the stats like, oh, Saka scored this many goals, but listen, there's a lot more to football than stats. Like, yeah, let's move on. I hope you were joking there. Next up, we have a GF who says Ajax is a bigger club than Arsenal. Interesting. I would say this is probably a medium take. Now, maybe from English football fan perspective, this is quite hot, but I think, to be honest, I think you're probably right. Actually, you're definitely right. I mean, I've never really thought about it, but yeah, Ajax are definitely a bigger club than Arsenal. I mean, Ajax have multiple European trophies, multiple Champions League trophies. They've had some absolutely unbelievable players for them, like, you know, Johan Cruyff and etc. They have one of the best academies in world football. They absolutely dominate their league, and yeah, Arsenal haven't won a single European trophy. So yeah, Ajax are definitely a bigger club than Arsenal. You're right, and you know, maybe Arsenal fans won't like to admit that, but I mean, Ajax literally have multiple European trophies, so you can't really compete with that Arsenal. Next up, we have Liam Chamberlain. So Liam says, the EFL is infinitely more entertaining than the Premier League and is not even remotely close. In order of entertainment, we have the Championship, then League 2, League 1, non-league, and then the Premier League last. I mean, damn, that is an extra hot take. That is extra hot. But look, I mean, if you had said maybe the Championship, I maybe could have agreed with you, but Premier League last, I don't know about that. Now look, it depends what you sort of look for in entertainment. We all look for different things in football, right? Some people, for entertainment, it's sort of like the quality of play. It's seeing good football and, you know, good players and skills and stuff like that. And I think that's maybe where the Premier League comes into play. That all teams, you can stick on like the worst two teams in the Premier League, and you'll see a good standard, a good quality of football. Whereas the rest of the leagues, you put on the bottom two, I mean, it's not a pretty watch, but you might see a lot of goals, you might see lots of like red cards, lots of funny moments, lots of entertaining stuff, which makes it entertaining, right? But yeah, I mean, look, maybe you can, it's personal preference, but for me, the Premier League being last of that is pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. Next up, we have ZZZ. So they listed 5 here, so I'll be pretty brief with some of these here. First one, Pep's Man City team, either 18, 19 or 22, 23 are the best teams in history. I mean, that's probably a medium. I mean, it's definitely up there, right? Particularly the treble winning season. You know, they won everything there was to win, so fair play and all this endurance. Yeah, look, they're definitely in the conversation for being the best teams ever, but I mean, they're probably, I think there's probably better teams. I do think his Barcelona treble team was probably a little bit better, but you know, they're up there for sure. Number 2, Giroud is one of the most overrated strikers of all time. Not a legend at any of his clubs bar Montpellier. I mean, that's quite hot, to be honest, and I don't know where Giroud got all this slander from. I don't think he's overrated, because I don't really think anyone sort of hypes up Giroud. I think most people recognise that Giroud is, you know, was a useful striker, was a great super sub, was a, you know, good player for the France national team, a useful player for most teams he played in, but no one ever has sort of called Giroud world class. No one's ever called him a legend. I think that's about right. Like, Giroud is manager ever. I mean, look, to be fair, he is definitely one of the best in terms of performances, in terms of achievements we've had in a long time, but he's not the best ever. I mean, Alf Ramsey is definitely the best. I mean, he won the World Cup. You're not the best if you don't win a trophy. Number 4, Lukaku and Rashford are some of the most unfairly overhated players of all time, especially Lukaku. I think Lukaku, maybe. Lukaku, yeah. I don't think Rashford. I'm not sure about Rashford. I mean, yeah, maybe United fans hate him, but I think outside of that, I don't think many people actually hate Rashford besides United fans. But yeah, maybe Lukaku does get quite a bit of hate. I mean, it's obviously he gets hate from like Chelsea fans because of the way he left us, but from a wider footballing community, they sort of see him as a meme, as a bum, as a rubbish player. Lukaku is actually on his day a very good striker, to be fair to him, so yeah, maybe that's right. And finally he says, every team who joined the Super League in 2021 should have been punished far worse. I'm talking points deductions and competition ban, not tiny fines. I mean, you're probably right, yeah, but realistically it's just never going to happen. Because if you start doing that, then they'll just be like, okay, screw this, we are going to leave them. If you start banning us and giving us points deductions and stuff like that. I mean, it was a stupid decision, it was stupid in the manner they did it, but you're probably right, but realistically I don't think it was ever going to happen. Right, next up we have Benny. Benny says Bukayo Saka is miles clear of Cole Palmer and he will consistently outperform every player he gets compared to. Right, this is quite hot. Now, I'm not necessarily going to sit and argue that Palmer is better than Saka. I think they're quite close. I think they're very, very close. But I disagree that you're saying he is miles clear of Cole Palmer. I don't think he's miles clear. I think they're very close and you could go either way, to be honest. They're both very good players. But to say he's miles clear is a bit of an overstatement, although this guy is an Arsenal fan, so I get where he's coming from. Next up we have Ramovic, and he says Julian Duranville will surpass Lamine Yamal in terms of skill within 2 years, right? This isn't even, the spice meter does not do justice to this take. This is extremely hot, like Caroline Reaper style, and it's extremely wrong. Like, what? Julian Duranville? I mean, in terms of skill, what does that necessarily mean? Like, he'll be a better player? I don't know. But, like, Yamal, I mean, unless Yamal gets a really bad injury or something, there's no way this happens. There's no way. I'm not gonna just sit, like, that's no disrespect to Duranville. I think he's a good, young, up-and-coming player, but, you know, Lamine Yamal is absolutely unbelievable. Next up, we have ABMBE. So he says Arsenal and Man United youngsters get 10 times the hype compared to any other team. Interesting. I think this is a medium take. Now that I think about it, I think maybe Man United, yes. Arsenal, actually, I don't know. Do they, like, I'm thinking of like the recent Arsenal ones, and yes, maybe they did get a bit hyped up, like Smith Rowe and Eddie Nketiah, Reece Nelson. That sort of crop of players were super hyped up by Arsenal fans, right? And you know, they all have basically left the club because they've not really been good enough. So maybe, but then, like, I don't know, Man United, I mean, yeah, they hype up Mainu, but that's probably fair. Like, they hyped up Rashford, that's fair. I don't know. I feel like most sort of fan bases hype up their youngsters like we do at Chelsea. I think most clubs do it, but maybe you might be onto something. I don't know. Luca says Real Madrid ruined their team by building a super team. I think this is quite lemon and herb. I think it's kind of obvious, to be honest. I mean, you're completely right. Yes, they did ruin their team. They completely ruined their team. Well, I'd say completely ruined. I wouldn't say completely ruined, but you know, signing Mbappe has made them worse in terms of they've sort of shifted this, but you know, they've had to shift their system and everything to accommodate him and all the superstars in one team, and it's just not really worked out too well. Probably if they didn't sign him and they just kept with how they were, they probably would be doing better than they are. Okay, next up we will have, Kesson. Kesson says, I'm not fully invested in the Arnie Slot hype train. Now, I'm guessing he's a Liverpool fan or something, but this is interesting. So, he's not convinced about Arnie Slot. Now, Arnie Slot, look, I'm kind of with you here in terms of he's done fantastic, no one can deny it. He's done absolutely fantastic at Liverpool so far, and what an amazing job. He's exceeded most people's expectations. But to be fair, I'm not going to sit here and say, Slot is one of the best managers. He is the best manager in the world. He is world class. He is unbelievable. He is going to dominate for years to come with this Liverpool team. He's going to build an era. I'm not prepared to say that yet because it's still early days. So, it could well fall off. I don't know. But what I will say is for now, he's done an exceptional job. Next up, we have Jack, who says, Martin Odegaard isn't the same level as KDB. He had one good season, now everyone thinks he's world class. I mean, this is quite plain. I think most people are aware that De Bruyne is better than Odegaard. I mean, I don't know about right now, it's pretty close between those two, but yeah, I mean, De Bruyne is better than Odegaard. When he's fit, when he's fully at his best, De Bruyne is better, and I think most people would agree with that, although I think you're being a little bit harsh to Odegaard there. Next up, we have S. So S says, Ferguson is closer to Mourinho and the rest than he is to Pep. Now this is hot. This is hot. Actually, this is extra hot. I don't really agree with this because, if you say Pep is better than Fergie, that's fine. You can have your opinion. I think it is kind of close. But to say, Pep is clear of Ferguson like that, I think is pretty crazy. I mean, we gotta respect what Ferguson's done. The way he absolutely dominated the Premier League, it's pretty remarkable what he done, and to do it for that long as well at the same club and sustain that success with that many different eras, that many different teams. It's unbelievable, and he's done such a great job at Man United that it's very close between him and Pep. But to say Pep is miles and or is completely clear, I don't know about that. Next up, we have Gabriel. Gabriel says most of Manchester City's squad is washed or bordering on being washed, and that's why they have taken a huge step back this season. De Bruyne cannot stay healthy and is inconsistent. Walker is a shell of his former self and has lost a lot of pace. Gundogan is not the same anymore. Grealish is not consistent and is a bog standard player at best. Stones also for the life of him cannot stay healthy, and all of these players are the spine of a team. When the spine of a team is not as good anymore, you're going to suffer as a team. I mean, this is probably plainish, to be honest. I think most people are aware. Now that yes, a lot of players are sort of washed, are over the hill. Most of those players you mentioned, most people are aware, Grealish, Walker, De Bruyne, Gundo are pretty bad right now, and are pretty much done. So yeah, I mean, if you're a real football man, you probably know that. But you are completely right. Next up, we have Mike. Mike says, if not for the AFCON in 2010, Drogba would arguably have the best individual season in Premier League history. Damn. I mean, that is extra hot. I mean, what? I mean, look, Drogba's my boy. Drogba is my favourite footballer of all time, pretty much, because, he was my idol growing up at Chelsea, but that's a little bit far. The best season in Premier League history. I mean, he was unreal that season, but yeah, though that's a little bit reaching. Why now Wijnaldum and Henderson were never that good at Liverpool. All ball progression in that team went through the fullbacks, which is incredibly rare, so they got a very easy ride, do very little with Fabinho being the ball winner behind them. That's also what Mike says. I think this is probably a medium take, and I think, I don't know, I think you're being a little bit disrespectful to them. Like, they played their role. Were they ever world-class players? Maybe not. Wijnaldum and Henderson, but, like, they played their role, and without them in the team, you know, Liverpool, you know, without them in the team, I'm not saying, like, Liverpool wouldn't win what they won. They maybe could have been replaced, but they did definitely play their role in that team, and you know, them and their work rate and their defensive work rate helped players like Andy Robertson, helped players like Trent thrive, helped everyone thrive. So while they maybe weren't some world-class elite players, I think they had their role and they played their role very, very well. Next up we have Quig, who says Delap should start England instead of Harry Kane. I mean, this is extra hot, but it is extra wrong. I mean, look, Delap is a quality player, great youngster, and I think in the future could be England's starting number 9, but he is not better than Harry Kane right now. Okay, next up we have Yule, who says any top 14 Premier League side would beat any Premier League champion from the 2000s. Players and teams are just better, and eras are different. The game grows to be better and better. It's not taking away from most teams 20 years ago. It will likely be the same in 20 years with the current champions. Interesting. This is maybe a hot take. I think it's hot. And it's a very interesting one. I think you're slightly wrong, but it's one of those where I just think we don't know. We don't know. You're completely right in terms of it's just a natural thing where over time people get better, over time football improves, over time everything improves and the level improves. But like, it's just one of those things where we're just speaking hypothetically here. I don't know. You know, I always find it hard when you sort of say, oh, would the treble United team beat the Man City United, Man City treble winning team? Like, it's just like, we don't know. It's different eras, it's different styles, it's different players, etc. So like, I don't know, you might be right, but I think your overall point about the levels increasing is probably right. Next up we have Jack. So Jack says the top 6 clubs are starting to fail because they are buying players with flair and inserting them into systems that are suited for robotic players. Man City is beginning to show signs of turmoil. United have been in shambles for 3+ years, and Chelsea were suffering and are beginning to dip again. Arsenal's dominance is likely to end if Saliba or Gabriel leave, or if they dip in form and sparks like Nwaneri leave. Interesting. I think it's a pretty medium take. To be honest, I wouldn't attribute like those teams you listed their problems due to signing flair and identity players. Like United, I mean, they just have a bunch of problems. I don't really think signing flair players has been the problem there. I mean, what sort of flair sort of players have they even signed? Like maybe an Anthony, but that's really about it. I think their problems are just bigger than that. Manchester City, again, I mean, they signed Doku, they signed Savinho, but like Doku has been okay for them, and they won like the league last season with Doku anyway in the side. Savinho maybe hasn't been amazing, but again, I think their issues are sort of deeper than that, and same with Chelsea. So you might be right, and I agree that signing flair players and putting them in the sort of robotic system doesn't work, but I don't think that's overall their problem. Next up we have Remini. Says Klopp is a top 6 manager of all time, but will never be held so because he lacks trophies, even though there's more to him than that. He's definitely in the conversation. He's probably not in there, yes. And yeah, maybe it is a trophies thing, but that's sort of, it's a little bit unfair, but it is just the way it works when when you're talking about best of all time, the things that sort of separate them are the trophies, and trophies is going to have to play a big factor. And yes, Klopp has some trophies, but he doesn't have a bunch. But yes, he's in the conversation in there for sure. Okay, next up we have Chris. Chris says if Xerxes doesn't come through at United, playing as a striker, he will be converted to a central midfielder like Joel Linton. I mean, this is quite hot. And I mean, to be honest, I could kind of see it. Like, he does have a bit of work rate to him. I've seen him, in games like Arsenal, where he's sort of like holding up the ball, sort of Joel Linton-esque. But to be fair, I would be very shocked if he transitioned into a midfielder like Joel Linton. I'm not sure he's a good enough striker, but I'm not sure he maybe quite has the work rate and like the passing ability and all of that to be a central midfielder. So, I mean, if you're right, you're a visionary, but I don't think so. Next up, we have Savage, who says, Tammy Abraham is the best striker in the world right now. I'm not even going to acknowledge that one. Phantom Jimbo says, Iron Robin on his day was better than any other player in the world. Wrong. Like, Robin was absolutely unbelievable, absolutely amazing. But he was not better than, like, Messi, and he was not better than Cristiano. Like, he's just not. But a very good player. Lee says Newcastle could be due for a 2000s Man United type decade in the 2030s. So essentially saying could like dominate the 2030s. I mean, that is extra hot, but I don't think it's going to be the case. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle, maybe picked up a title in the 2030s, with the way they're going and with the money they have. But I think with the restrictions they have over how much money they can actually use, I would be very shocked if they went on that sort of dominance and had a dominant era like that. I think maybe they could pick up a title, but to say they go on a run like that, I'm not sure. Okay, next up we have Mark. Mark says, in order to be able to finance a rebuild and enable Amram to bring in the players that fit his system, Man United should sell Mainu and Garnacho. Now, I think this is quite hot. Now, I mean, Garnacho isn't hot. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're trying to sell Garnacho right now anyways, and I don't think that's particularly an issue. Like, yeah, they should probably sell Garnacho if they get a decent offer for him. But Mainu is hot. That's a hot take. But I think I agree with you, Mark. I agree with you. Like, Mainu, for me, you definitely keep him if you can, but Mainu has a price. Like, there is a price on Mainu where a team puts in a bid and you will consider accepting it. He's not untouchable. While he's an amazing player and has great potential, he has struggled at points under Amram, and as I said, is not an untouchable, irreplaceable player, right? So he has a price. Ideally, you keep him around. I don't think you actively try to sell him, but I think if someone puts in a pretty good bid, you consider. Ryan says San Marino will become top national team in the world in no time. Yep, you're completely right. Next up we have Mr. Hardnut, who says Harry Kane has been the best striker in the world for the last decade, and he will never get the plaudits he deserves because he played for Spurs. The only Premier League striker that's ever been better is Suarez. I mean, that's medium. I mean, he's been the best striker in the world for the last decade. He's definitely up there. He's definitely in the conversation. But I wouldn't say he's been the best striker for the last decade. I think Suarez, Benzema, Lewandowski, I think are better than him in the last decade. Kane is very close, but again, when you get to that sort of upper echelon, the thing that separates you is the trophies, and it's not necessarily just like the trophies. It's what I mentioned before about that hot take with the Ballon d'Or. Like, in that period, Benzema won some UCLs, right? But in that run, what was it, like 2022, Benzema literally carried his team to the Champions League that year with like multiple hat-tricks in knockout stages. Lewandowski, when he won it with Bayern, he was unbelievable, he was unplayable, scoring in key games in the Champions League. Same thing with Suarez. So it's not necessarily that Kane hasn't won those trophies, it's just unfortunately he hasn't really turned up in like a Champions League semi, a Champions League final. He hasn't turned up in those moments. Yes, it is unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. As I said, when you get to that sort of upper echelon, he's in the conversation, but what does separate him from the rest is he can't say, I scored a Champions League semi-final, I scored a Champions League final, I won my team this trophy. He can't say it, unfortunately. So yeah. Alright, next up we have Dales. So Dales says, Mexico would have made the semis of the 2014 Brazil World Cup if no era penalty never happened versus the Netherlands. Now I can't lie, I can't remember what you're referring to here. Let me just have a little look. Mexico, Netherlands, 2014. What was it? What? The okay, yeah. I know who you're referring to. I mean, well, here's the thing. So if that isn't given a penalty, then it goes to extra time. And extra time, it's sort of anyone's game there. Mexico did play very well that tournament. I mean, Ochoa was unreal. But here's the thing, like, on penalties, if it goes to penalties, I don't know. I'm probably back in the Netherlands, because remember, they would have probably subbed on Tim Krul again, who was unreal at saving penalties. And while Ochoa is great at saving penalties, I think Tim Krul and, the way the Netherlands took penalties, they had already won a penalty shootout before that, probably go through. Now, if Ronaldo went to Man City, he would have been informed to win the Qatar 2022 World Cup, right? Look, you're probably right. If he went to Man City, he would have been in much better shape than he was when he went to that World Cup. But let's be real, he wasn't, like, if Ronaldo even was on form in that World Cup, Portugal were not going to win that World Cup. Like, they were not a particularly fantastic team. And I think maybe peak Cristiano might have helped them get there, but no, Ronaldo at that age, even if he was at Man City, I don't think would have helped them win the World Cup. They would have done better, but they wouldn't have won the World Cup. Next up, we have AS Clemar, or Clem ASMR. Thank you very much for submitting one. Go subscribe to him if you haven't already, although I'm sure you are. He says, no manager in the Premier League will last more than 6 years now. There will be no longer any long-term management goals, only long-term club goals due to clubs taking ownership. I think it's a medium take. But I think you're completely right. In the way modern football is going, we're not going to see these sort of Fergies, these Wengers, these Peps, these Klopps, who stay at clubs for very, very long periods of time. I think clubs are sort of, their models are all shaped around sort of managers being head coaches now, where they have these sort of directors and, they sort of follow like a Brighton model where everything is in place, and then they sort of just plug in a manager into a sort of ecosystem that's already functioning, and they put managers into these positions, they give them all the tools they need, and they say, okay, you need to work with what you have. And I think for that reason, we're not going to see a bunch of managers stay at clubs for that long. So yeah, I think, this is a pretty sensible take, and I think you're right. Next up we have Matthew, who says, football doesn't give the same energy it used to, the less individual brilliance. Someone like Bale would be head and shoulders the best player in the world if he played in this era. I think it's a medium take, but I think again you're probably right. I think there is a lot less individual brilliance in the game. Definitely. I mean, this is all due to most teams now sort of playing possession-based football, and it's all sort of like about the tactics, about the managers. There's a lot less individualism in the game, which is very, very annoying. There are certain players who do it, like Vinicius Junior for me is probably the best right now in terms of someone who has that individual talent, who can do some pretty nice things with the ball at his feet. But yeah, we don't really have those, or like Neymars, those Bales, those Robins, those Ribery's, these sort of guys, these like an Özil or something. Just a player who can just do some bit of magic. Yeah, you're right. Next up, we have Jakob, who says Neuer is not only the greatest goalkeeper of all time, but also the third best player in this generation behind Messi and Ronaldo. He deserved a Ballon d'Or in 2014, had some of the best individual performances in big games, and revolutionised the entire position. The only reason this take is underrated is the lack of PR for Bayern and Bundesliga players and goalkeepers in general. Damn. Now that's a hot take. That's quite hot. But I'm not gonna lie. You've kind of convinced me. Now I think there's an argument. Yes, there's an argument. He is in third. I agree. For me, it's probably him, Casillas, or maybe Buffon in terms of the top three goalkeepers of all time. And Neuer for me is probably number one. In terms of his generation, yeah, he's definitely in the top five best players. But I completely agree with you in terms of he's probably not gonna get that recognition because he's a goalkeeper. I'm not sure necessarily because he plays in the Bundesliga, but I think it's just because he's a goalkeeper he's not gonna get that recognition. But you're probably right, to be honest. I mean, he's arguably the greatest goalkeeper of all time, so you kind of have to be automatically in that third spot. But yeah, he's definitely in the conversation. So yeah, pretty good ball knowledge there. Next up we have Ewan, who says, being a globally known football club doesn't make you a bigger club than anyone else. The fan turnout and atmosphere matters way more. I completely agree with you here. I mean, yeah, being globally known for me does not matter. It is, I mean, well, I wouldn't say this makes you a big club, but if you say to me, like, for example, Man City, they're probably known around the world now due to the success they have, but their fan turnout and atmosphere is very bad. Now, I wouldn't say necessarily fan turnout and atmosphere makes you a big club, but I think I value that a lot more than just being recognised as a global brand. Next up we have Phantom Editor, who says Gareth Bale is in top 10 footballers of all time. I mean, that is extra hot, and I think it's wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Bale, and Bale is a legend of the game, and is definitely a, maybe top 10 of his generation, but of all time, yeah, no. There's a lot of players back in the day. I mean, literally, let me reel off 10 players right now who are better than Gareth Bale. Messi, Cristiano, R9, Zidane, Maradona, Pele. You can say like maybe Robin. I think you'll probably argue Robin was better than Bale. Manuel Neuer. I mean, we just mentioned him. Manuel Neuer. You can argue is better. Paolo Maldini, Beckenbauer. That's 10 already. I mean, I haven't even got onto someone like a Philipp Lahm, maybe Luka Modric. Yeah, there's plenty of players. Better than Bale, but no disrespect to him, he is still a legend of the game. Next up, we have Rose says, if United kept Ole and didn't re-sign Ronaldo, they'd have seen the same progress that Arsenal have made, but the fans are too impatient, and that's why they keep having to rebuild and reset. Now this is a hot take, and I mean, while I think you're right in terms of, I think United would have been better off if they didn't sign Ronaldo. I think you're right, they would have been better off. Not because Ronaldo did bad, Ronaldo did very well when he joined. But I mean, Ole literally admitted it after, didn't he? that it sort of derailed what they were building, and they had to sort of change everything to accommodate for him. So yeah, they would have improved, but I don't think they would have been on like an Arsenal trajectory here, because I just don't think Ole was a good enough manager. Like Ole, don't get me wrong, was particularly in hindsight not too bad, but he was never the manager for me to take United, to where Arsenal were, and take them into competing for Premier League titles. I don't think he was ever capable of doing that. I think technically he was just not quite good enough. Now, he maybe would have lasted a bit longer if he didn't sign Ronaldo, but I think inevitably he would have got sacked and the wheels would have come off, to be honest. Next up we have Kobe Mainu fan, who says FIFA or EAFC influences most people's opinions on players. For example, Van Basten isn't given enough praise as his card doesn't reflect his greatness. If Romario was in the game as an icon, he would be regarded as one of the greats, but as he isn't, most people don't even know him. I actually really like that take. I think that's a really interesting one, and I think it's pretty true. Whether it's conscious or subconsciously, I think EA and FIFA definitely does influence us, particularly, sort of people like my age who sort of have grown up playing FIFA and all of that. Yes, it definitely does influence you if you've, sort of played FIFA for years and years. Like me, as I said, maybe subconsciously it happens. For example, yeah, I think you're completely right about someone like Romario. I don't ever hear people talk about him yet. He is one of the greatest players of all time. And yeah, I think you're completely right. I've never really thought about that before, but yeah, you're right. And he was Lamine Yamal is more likely to win a Ballon d'Or than Haaland. I think that's quite a plainish take, to be honest. I mean, if you said Yamal will win the Ballon d'Or before Haaland, okay, maybe that's a different story, but who's more likely? Like, if you were to tell me only one of them will win it, who would it be? I would say Yamal, because he's got like 10 years to do it, and Haaland maybe has like 6 years to do it. Or I do think both will probably win it. And then number 3 says when Salah retires, he will be considered the best Prem player of all time. Right, I mean, that is an extra hot take. Now look, Salah, when he retires, I think will go down as one of the greatest Premier League players of all time, but in order for him to be the best player of all time, he would pretty much have to win the league this season, and then probably win it again next season with a similar sort of record as he's done this year. And I mean, that could happen, but I doubt it. And I think with his age, if he was a bit younger, maybe, but with his age, I think he's only maybe got one or two more years left at this elite level. So yeah, I think it was a bit younger maybe, but I don't think so. I would doubt it. He would have to do something incredible to do it and surpass Thierry. Right, and the final one is from Cheese Clears, who says Musiala and Verts together are better than Vinny and Bellingham together. Now that's interesting. Now I'm not sure what exactly you mean. Do you mean like when they play with the national team together, they're better than Vinny and Bellingham when they play together? Because if that's the case, no. But do you mean like individually they're better talents? Because if you mean that, then I mean I still think you're wrong, but it's very close. Like I really rate Musiala and Bert. Like I really rate them. I think these two are absolutely class and are gonna be, potential future Ballon d'Or winners. I think they are absolutely unbelievable world-class players. But Bellingham and Vinny for me are just slightly better. Again, it's sort of that thing where in those big moments, those big games, Verts and Musiala have turned up, but I've seen Bellingham, I've seen Vinicius in sort of Champions League finals and Champions League semi-finals carry teams on their back and put in unbelievable performances, but Verts and Musiala are very close, but I just think Vinny and Bellingham are slightly better. Anyways,